Ridiculous Nuggets trade incoming? Report reveals massive trade possibility. Let's figure out the winners and losers within this multi team offer today on Nuggets Digest. What's up, Nuggets Nation? My name is Stuart Hicar, Colorado native, basketball fan, and just a regularly pretty good person, the kind of guy who would probably let you turn into a lane if you were like stuck in standstill traffic or something. And other than the little sunburn on my nose, there is something I need to bring to your attention before we start talking today. Did you know only 2% of our viewers are actually subscribed to this channel, which means over 98% of you are missing out on the best gosh darn basketball analysis this side of the continental divide. So, if you like what we do here at Nuggets Digest, hit that subscribe and like button to stay up to date with your favorite Mile High team. All right, now that that is out of the way, let's talk some exciting trade offers. Obviously, the playoffs are still going on. The Nuggets are out of it. It's sad, but it's okay. We have a lot of work to do in the offseason if we want a real chance at that chip next year. And that's true with a lot of other teams as well. Obviously, there are some teams in the league right now who are stuck in that middle ground, who aren't sure whether or not they should be tanking for a pick or if they should be trading around to try and make a run at it. And this trade possibility coming out of Sports Illustrated, I do think addresses a lot of issues for a lot of different teams. So let's look into it specifically. The headline is New Blockbuster three-team trade proposal sends Michael Porter Jr. to Chicago. Nuggets and Hawks build depth. And first off, right out of the bat, if you're a Nuggets fan, you understand that is what we need. Depth is the number one thing that sank us the last 2 years. It was a rough kind of 2-year struggle because we haven't made the changes we need to change. After you win a championship, obviously anybody whose contract is up, they want to get paid and they deserve to. So, good on guys like KCP and Bruce Brown for going and getting those contracts. But unfortunately, it has left the Nuggets as kind of this team that doesn't quite have the pieces they need to make a deep playoff run because eventually, we're only running like a 6-man rotation and our stars are getting tired. And if they have an answer for a Jokic Murray pick and roll and no one else can step up in that instance, we're dead in the water. So let's talk a little bit more about who's actually affected in this trade. Obviously, our biggest chip that we have to trade is Michael Porter Jr. His contract is pretty average for a guy his age and his skill type. And so I think there are a lot of organizations who wouldn't mind taking him on. I think most GMs will watch the tape of him playing when he's at his best. And I think most Nuggets fans know that Michael Porter Jr., when he's on, he's got the best looking jump shot in basketball. I think bar none. I think he has absolutely unbelievable mechanics. And so I think if you're a GM, you want to bring this guy onto your team just because there's a possibility you feel like you can unlock that thing that makes him more consistent in your lineup. Obviously, the Nuggets have been struggling with that, and he had a lot of injury to deal with during these playoffs, so this isn't really the performance I would be talking about. I think he's still a really great player, even though he had some struggles in this 2024-25 playoff run. Who else is affected? It's going to be these Atlanta Hawks right here, who, while they have a star in Trae Young, they really don't have enough of a team to make any sort of a run at anything right now. And they've been talking about trading Trae Young for a little bit, which is interesting considering he's such a big part of that team. But does that mean they want to blow up the entire thing? I don't know. That's a good question to look into. Along with that, let's look at these Chicago Bulls, who are just good enough to make it sort of into the play-in area of the playoffs, but they are not making it any further than that. They are not an actual contender for the championship. And that's tough, I think. I think most people know that when you're in the middle ground in the NBA, that is the worst place you can be. You either want to be making a real run at the playoffs, or you want to be absolutely eating dirt so you have a chance at a good draft pick and a rebuild around that. Right now, they are dead in the water in terms of that middle ground area, and I think they are more than happy to make some big changes to possibly blow up this team and draft some new stars. But let's talk about the actual trade details itself with a little bit of a close-up here. So the Hawks get Dosunmu from the Chicago Bulls and Peyton Watson from the Nuggets. The Nuggets receive Kevin Huerter, Terrence Mann, Lonzo Ball, Jalen Smith, Dalen Terry, and a whole host of picks, random, mostly second-round picks from around the league, swapping Atlanta and Cleveland picks. The Bulls are going to receive Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, Dario Saric, Kobe Bufkin, Julian Strother, and a couple of picks as well. So Who does this really benefit the most? I think it's not a bad slide all around. The Hawks lose a lot of those players, which means they're blowing things up and they're ready to rebuild around possibly a new draft pick. Obviously, they are going to receive a little bit of bench help with Io and Peyton. Those are two guys who really play their hearts out, so I do think they would be loved by those Hawks fans as they kind of create this rebuild. Those might be some guys they could lean on for some basic minutes during the year. The Nuggets really expand their depth, which is the number one thing, again, that we need to be focusing on during this offseason. I really like the additions of Kevin Huerter and Lonzo Ball. If Lonzo can stay healthy, that's the one concern, obviously, is those injuries have plagued him. And so is this something where we bring on some contract negative just so that he can sit on the bench with an injury? I don't know. That's pretty tough. The Bulls, I think, are doing something similar. They want those first round picks. They want those protected picks. That's practically gold if you can get two number one picks back to back. So I think this could really help a lot of these organizations. But is it something we actually need to be doing? That's a whole nother question entirely. I think if you look at what the team's future is, according to team president Josh Kroenke, he says, I think as a group, we feel confident that we can go toe to toe with a lot of teams around the league. And now we're about to get to work seeing about how we can go toe to toe and then overtake them. I think he's right. In these playoffs, it really proved that we have a hell of a squad and we can beat any team out there on any given night. But in a 7-game series, you need depth. And I think that is what he is referring to in terms of the work that needs to be done. But obviously, we'll need a GM before that happens. And I would be curious to see which way Josh goes on that. Obviously, our new head coach is officially David Adelman. And with a head coach in place, it's going to be a little bit harder to find a GM because I think most general managers would want some say in who that head coach would be. However, I still think the possibility of getting to manage Jokić and a team around him is pretty exciting for a lot of folks out there around the league. With that said, this is another piece of the puzzle from Kroenke after that media day. He said, the core of this team was assembled under a different CBA. We drafted, we developed, and we built this team under a different set of rules. Those rules have changed on the fly, have kind of changed on the fly. And that's true. We have sort of been building this team from the ground up for quite some time now. And as the player association changes the general rules when it comes to tax curtains and salary curtains, it is going to kind of screw up your plans if you had a long-term plan on how much money you were willing to pay some people. And that really includes this guy right here, Michael Porter Jr. I think in another world, we had a different payment plan laid out, a different second curtain for those salary caps, and maybe we're able to contain these guys as well as bring on some free agents. But right now, we're living under the current CBA, and that means we have to move off some salaries if we want to bring in some bench depth. And I do think after this season, again, while these numbers aren't unbelievable, I think if you look at his highlights, this is a guy that most teams would be really excited about getting. But again, in this trade, what do the Nuggets get? Well, they add depth. That's the number one thing. We've talked about that already. Hugely important. And probably the number one thing that I think is contributing to the winner of these playoffs. Teams like OKC, teams like the Celtics before the injury, teams like the Knicks and the Timberwolves. These guys have great benches who they can rely on for 30 to 40 points a game, which is just like so foreign to the Nuggets as a concept. Along with that, these are short-term contracts that would be coming to the Nuggets. So this would not be something that we're stuck with for 4 to 5 years like our current situation has been. This would be an experiment that obviously if it's working, great, let's keep it up. But right now, it's not like we would be stuck in this for a lot of seasons to come. And finally, it's a fresh look. The Nuggets have looked pretty similar for the past 4 years or so, and we've only lost guys. It's not like we've gained a lot of new stars. We've only gone down since that championship in terms of our depth and our veteran status, the guys on our bench. It's been a little stagnant. And while stagnant is good if you feel like your players are up on the rise and you've got something to look forward to, unfortunately, it feels like we sort of hit our top gear and we can't go any faster and we need a fresh look. So those are some of the benefits. Do I personally like this trade? I'm a little 50-50 on it. It could be really positive. I'm huge on depth right now, and I would love to see some guys on the bench who could take some minutes off of our starters in a really positive way. But I'll be honest, I love Michael Porter Jr. I've been watching the Nuggets long enough to watch him sort of like build his career in a really exciting way and to feel confident even after all those back surgeries before the draft originally. And to see the team really confident behind him, I think it's just been super positive. Do I love his podcast? No, I think he's kind of dumb, but I also don't think that matters when it comes to basketball, right? So I think I wouldn't mind keeping the guy around personally, but I also understand when that's the stock you've got to trade, you got to talk about doing it. So, with all that said, what do you think? Do you agree with my very good takes, or do you want me to be traded to the Atlanta Hawks for depth? Either way, totally fine. Join the conversation down below, jump into the community, and let us know your thoughts. In the meantime, my name is Stuart Hicar. This has been another perfect video. 10 out of 10. Really fantastic. And until next time, go Nugs.